So you don't have a busy problem, you have a priority problem. So we need to get your priorities straight. As a parent, you're often like, God, if I do that thing and go to that course or read that book, that means I'm spending those 5 hours away from my family. God, that's so selfish. But is it? Is investing in your mindset and your heart set, your emotions, is that a selfish act? I think it's a really beautiful thing to do. And we need to give ourselves more time to invest in ourselves.
Hello, everyone. Today, I am so excited to be joined by James Laughlin, a 7-time world champion musician, best-selling author of Habits of High Performers, which has been doing amazing, and global keynote speaker. From London boardrooms to Antarctic missions, he equips leaders to achieve elite results, a history-making team captain and mental skills coach to pro athletes. James shares proven tools with top performers. He also hosts the #1 ranked Lead on Purpose podcast, which I was so lucky to be on. He interviews prime ministers, Formula One teams, best-selling authors to explore the habits behind world-class performance. But what makes today's conversation particularly interesting for us is that James, like so many high performers, has suspected he may have had ADHD tendencies, hasn't pursued any formal diagnosis, but we did work together one-on-one earlier this year with a focus on sharpening his clarity, managing his attention, and creating sustainable systems. So what we're going to do today is, in his book, he shares 7 really great principles. I've been reading the book. I've got it here. And we're going to dig into some of those habits. I'm going to ask all the questions that I want to ask, and hopefully it's going to be a really, really valuable conversation for you guys to hear as well. So welcome, James.
Skye, it's so nice to see you and lovely to be on the other end of this, because I'll tell you what, when you were on my podcast, people loved you, and we should put a link to that in the show because you were just awesome. Thank you for being on the show, but a pleasure to be here with you.
Thanks. Yeah. I'm happy to be on this side so I can ask you all the questions. So let's dive in. So you've got 7 things, in your book, and I'm hoping to go through all of them. We'll see how much time we have today. But you start the book with the idea of get clear. And I think this is so powerful because when I talk with people, particularly people with ADHD struggles, that lack of clarity is such a struggle for them. So why did you start with this? What is it about get clear that makes it that foundational piece?
Yeah, vision precedes victory in any field, any activity. Getting radically clear on what success looks like has to be the starting point. Otherwise, we tend to say yes to anything and everything. All the shiny objects that pop up will look like good opportunities. But when we're radically clear on what it is we really want, it makes it easier, not easy, easier to say no to all the distractions. So for me, anything I've done in my life, or whether I'm working with athletes or business leaders, getting radically clear gives them a shot at actually following through on it.
Yeah, 100%. And I guess my question for you then is, because I work with people all the time. They'd be like, I clearly know that I want to get a 6-pack, spend 7 hours a day with my children. I also want to run a multi-million-dollar business, and I want to do it all by Friday. So how do we deal with that when we're talking about clarity?
Yeah, it's interesting. So I think high performers tend to have really high expectations on themselves. And so I think it's about being realistic with our expectations. And obviously, you know me and you've worked with me. I'm not always perfect at that. Sometimes I'll look at it and be like, yeah, I can do this week. I can write a book in 3 days. Not going to happen, right? So I think it's about having really clear expectations, reasonable expectations, and also having someone who can act as a coach or someone who can see your blind spots. Because certainly the high performers I work with, they don't see their blind spots because they're blind spots. And so having someone that can say, oi, is this what you're focused on? Why are you doing this? Why have you got 5 other things on the go when you told me you wanted to do this? So accountability is a really big thing in terms of staying clear and staying on the path.
Yeah, no, 100%. I was talking with a guy this morning and was like, okay, you need to hire an assistant. And he's like, I've been told this by so many people, and I realized I needed to do this over the years, but it's that lack of accountability. It'll just keep going round and round, 100%.
100%.
So let's talk then about the next stage, because the other thing that happens a lot is people will say, okay, this is my goal. And so we'll have a conversation saying, okay, well, how would it feel to reach that goal? If we get clear, if we go in the direction you want to go, how would it feel? And people say, it would feel amazing. I feel so great. Oh, but like, I should have done it faster. Oh, I should have done it easier. Why do I even need help to do this? And that's where that belief system comes in, which is the second thing you talk about. It can really sabotage your performance. So what did you personally, as you grew as a high performance person, have to unlock in your belief systems?
Yeah, let's start with our BS. So, Skye, you're full of BS. And what I mean by that is belief systems. Before you hang up on this podcast.
Yeah, we're like changing the rating right now.
Totally. So I want you to think what comes to mind, 2 or 3 things that come to mind when you think of an Irishman.
Gosh, I've never been asked that question before. Guinness.
Yeah, brilliant. What else?
Rugby, I guess.
Brilliant.
Yeah.
Awesome. So I have done this with tens of thousands of people from stage, and Guinness is always the first thing to come up. Leprechauns, potatoes,
Yes.
rugby, all these things come up, right?
Yeah.
That's BS. That's belief systems. And it just sits at our subconscious level, and it doesn't make them right, doesn't make them wrong. They just are what they are. So as high performers, we need to be aware that our beliefs internally are either empowering us or disempowering us. And it's important to get to the root of that. So if you're not getting the results that you want, it could be very much related to a limiting belief. I believe I'm too late. I believe I'm too old. I believe I'm too young. I believe I'm big boned. I believe I'm broke. I believe money doesn't grow on like all these things are either helping us or hindering us. And so it's important. In the book, we actually have a very specific exercise I take people through around, okay, what are your global beliefs about failure, success, happiness, money? Because often our beliefs around those are elevating us or doing the opposite. And so I think it's important to do like a belief audit and go, what is it I believe about success? What is it I believe about my industry? And it's either serving us or not.
Yeah. So for you personally, because you will have had to have done this because you are also full of BS.
Yes,
Sorry,
I
I just
am.
wanted to say that. What were your beliefs that you had to look at as you grew into this role?
Yeah, 100%. Interesting. Like as a child, wanting to be a world champion. So I won the worlds at 13. You know, those 11 and 12 and early 13 stage, I had to really start working on the belief that I could be a world champion. I could win this because that in fact impacted my attitude and then impacted my behavior. And if you look at that psychological model of beliefs, they shape our attitude and our attitude dictates our behavior. I had to go back to I can win this. I can be a world champion. And so that helped me do that. Now fast forward to mid-20s, I was earning okay money, not lots, but not a little. And I never had any left over. The money would always disappear. I'd pay my rent for sure, but no money. I believed money didn't grow on trees. I was told that from a very young age. Grew up in a working class town, had enough money, but never too much. And so I struggled. And I struggled to accept more money. I struggled to charge more money. Even though I was at that stage 7, 8-time world champion, like I struggled to charge a premium. I didn't think I was worth it. So I had to go back and rewire what I believed about money. I had to rewire what I believed about me being enough and being worthy of money. And then more recently, going from being James the drummer to James the individual who coaches country leaders, Formula One coaches, you know, billionaires. Like that was huge imposter syndrome, massive imposter syndrome. So I had to go back and go, I believe I can do this. I believe I've got the skill. I believe I can move from one career to another. And that took time.
Yeah. No, that's a huge shift. And I really appreciate you bringing up the pricing thing. I think so many people, I always say to people, chances are you're undercharging. Like, yes, I know some people overcharge, but if you're having this conversation with me, chances are you're not charging enough. And I think we all struggle with that. But when we're talking again about that imposter syndrome, because I talk to clients and people about this all the time, about can I be that person who gives advice or gives support to people who are in this position of being at the top, and then obviously you meet them and it turns out they have their own imposter syndrome, et cetera, et cetera. But how did you break that? Because there must have been some people where you walked into the room and you just felt anxious,
Mm.
for lack of a better word.
Definitely. So like the first time working with a prime minister, before I go to do that very first time, I was nervous as hell. I said to my partner, God, I should write everything out, all the questions I need to ask. And she said, James, you've never written a question out in your life for a coaching session or for a podcast interview. What are you doing? I was like, well, it's the prime minister. Like, my God. And I've got an audience there.
Shouldn't
like,
I prep?
yeah, totally. Right. She's like, James, you've always known what you want to get out of the conversation. You've always known how you want to coach. Like, stop overthinking it. He put his underwear on the same way you did this morning. I was like, I guess you're right.
Yeah.
So I would end there with a bit of coaching from my partner. She still hasn't sent me the invoice, thankfully, and went and did what I had to do. And that little bit of confidence from someone else close to me, that self-belief that they had, gave me enough confidence to step in. And yes, I was nervous, and yes, I was sweaty palms. But once I got started, that exposure started to build confidence. And I think that's the thing. Most of us struggle to maybe step into the arena. But once you're in the arena, you're exposing yourself to it even a little bit. And that gives us more confidence. So for me, it's just been setting something as a challenging goal. Like, for example, the book. I did not want to write a book. I thought it was silly. Who would buy it? Who am I to write a book?
Apparently, a lot of people. Number one in New Zealand at the moment. So
Hell blows my mind. Yeah, it's nuts. So I didn't want to do it because I didn't think I was worthy. I didn't think people want to buy it. But with gentle encouragement from multiple parties, like, James, you got to write it. You should do it. Like, what's there to lose? So one page at a time, one day at a time. And I think that's the best way to approach anything we have doubt about.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. And I think there is something in there as well that you sort of touched on, is that you are an expert at what you do. That, yes, this person might be very important. They might have a lot of outward, recognition from other people. But at the end of the day, you are the expert at what you are doing. And that is something that they don't have knowledge of. And so you can come in and you can provide that to them, regardless of where they, quote unquote, sit. Yeah.
100%. And I think for anyone listening, that gives them the confidence to know that if they have a specialty skill, that's so valuable in the marketplace, and to back that, to double down on that. And in the book, towards the end, I talk about goats focusing on their strengths. And when you look at the greats and any of the ones I've worked with, they just focus on their strengths. They know their weaknesses, and they often find ways to deal with them, delegate them, get coached on them. But actually they go, what am I great at? Okay, I'm going to become world class at this one thing. And that becomes very valuable.
Are you a business owner who is struggling with ADHD symptoms? Maybe your business is making money, but you know it could be doing more. You feel like you're the bottleneck. You can't get yourself to focus. You start every day with 100 urgent tasks, and you've actually just given up on even trying to delegate. If that sounds like you want to get unstuck, you want to start growing, go ahead and click the link down below. I will show you exactly how to bridge the gap between knowing what to do and doing it consistently, even on the tough days. I've helped people like Tanya triple her revenue by focusing on her most important tasks. Kendall increased her sales volume. James used my focus routine to get his time back. Chelsea secured enough sponsorships to race in Europe, and Kate was able to get $75,000 in grants and go full-time on her business. So if you want to know how to prioritize and delegate when everything is on fire, without that inevitable crash out and the last minute panic, so that you can actually spend time with the people that matters and doing what matters, go ahead and click the link down below, and I will show you how to bridge that gap between knowing and doing consistently with ADHD. Well, let's talk about those weaknesses a little bit, because I'm going to jump into the multiply your motivation chapter. But obviously, we talked a little bit about motivation after this book was written, because we sat down, we talked about ADHD. You thought to yourself, this sounds familiar. And then we worked together over a little while. So take me through that, and then we'll talk about the motivation in the book.
Yeah, it's interesting. When I sat down with you, and my videographer was there as well for the podcast, as you were speaking, I was like, whoa, I can relate to a lot of these tendencies. I've got lots of things on the go often. I'm often doing the juggle. My wallet is always missing. It's just crazy. Like these simple little things. I'm like, oh yeah, that is me. I can't remember things if I don't write it down and capture it somewhere centrally. If it's not on my calendar, I won't show up. I just don't have that ability. And so I walked away from that conversation going, I need to see Skye. I want to get coached by Skye. Skye's got the answers to my challenges. And I was in a really pivotal time. It was leading into the book launch, and it was just pre-book launch. And I understood if I get this launch right, the book has a chance to actually lift off. And from my understanding, most books don't lift off. They just kind of keep ground level. So I was like, okay, I've got to give it everything. But I was still running my business at the same time. I was still being a dad, still traveling all around delivering keynotes. God, I don't know how I'm going to do this. So with your help, it was amazing to sit down and actually get my calendar up. And vulnerably, I showed you my entire calendar.
Yep. It's what we do.
It's brilliant. And so, yeah, that really helped me get clear on here's how I can do this. You helped me get radically clear. First chapter of the book.
Yeah, 100%. And then when it came to motivation, I know for you, it was those little things that, when we're somebody, and I think, a lot of high performers will struggle with ADHD symptoms. That's one of the things we see actually as a correlation when we look at it. So when we're talking about this, that idea of motivation, idea of building systems to help create motivation rather than waiting for it, we did it by, starting you off with a sort of reward for starting, not a reward at the end, things like that. But how did that shape, if you think back to the book now, what were you thinking about when you were thinking about motivation in the book? And then I'm also curious, would you have, added anything or made any, little like pieces, just for our listeners, in terms of that idea of motivation with that extra little piece of knowledge?
Yeah, absolutely. That was valuable knowledge. So obviously in the book, I talk about high performers are hormonal. And in that we can set goals, we can have systems, we can have task lists, etc. But if our hormonal system is not functioning well, then we will likely not have the motivation to get up and go. There's this very interesting study with rats where, they would hit a button 7,000 times an hour to get fed. But when the dopamine was removed, or the dopamine receptors were removed, they were starving. They had no desire to get fed, no desire to move towards food. We are no different in that if we have dopamine that's dysregulated, as you know, we will not be motivated to do something that we know we need to do, mission critical things. We will delay big mission critical things and go make a cup of coffee, or we'll go and watch Netflix for 5 hours, or we'll go and phone 16 friends or text them. So in the book, we talk about those. There's 4 key kind of endorphins, different neurotransmitters that can really impact our performance. But what I find really interesting when you and I work together, because I'll be honest, so I love speaking. I love getting on a stage, speaking to an audience. That's what I do day in, day out. What I don't love is creating the slides for those keynotes. I hate it, right? I hate it, like sitting down at a computer and picking this and doing that and dropping this. And then a phone goes off and an email comes in. So I was just procrastinating to the point where I'm speaking to 5,000 people tomorrow, and 24 hours out, I still haven't designed the slides and sent it to the organizer. It's like, not good, right? So you shifted that. You're like, James, how about like looking at transitions? How about, what is it you enjoy? So you know that I enjoy tea. You know that I enjoy country music. And so you said, James, I'm breathwork. Why don't we combine those 3 things? And they are almost like your segue, your transition, and your reward before you go and do your keynote slides.
Yeah.
And my God, it was unbelievable. And all of a sudden I'm texting you going, this worked. Like I'm happy to do my slides. And so there's definitely elements of what we did there that I would love to, edition 2 of the book, I'll have to quote Skye in there and some extra tools.
Well, it's interesting, and it is based on it's really cool that you had that kind of research in dopamine, because it is based on research what we did. It wasn't, as much as, the strategies I've come up with working with clients, it comes down to when we look at, people and how people who struggle with ADHD symptoms experience dopamine spikes. So if you're more traditional, your brain will give you a dopamine spike and there's more detail in this if you want to go into it, but you will get that spike for starting a task because it's connected to the reward of finishing the task, sort of like the way your brain knows that's going to happen. At least that's what we're thinking right now based on the research. It seems to be that if you have ADHD symptoms, you're not getting that boost. So we need to add that boost ourselves. We need to add that motivation ourselves in order to get the same level of motivation to start.
Makes total sense. And it honestly, from a very pragmatic standpoint, made a notable difference in that. And I'm months into that now, and it's working great. My slides are way on time, sometimes a week early. Like that's a 7x improvement.
Yeah, and it is interesting because you are totally right though. Having that baseline as well, it would have helped you so much. So being that person, like, we also know that exercise is massively, massively helpful. Having a clean diet, getting enough sleep, huge benefit, almost the secret, because if you don't get enough sleep, you're experiencing ADHD symptoms even if you don't have ADHD. So these are all the baseline, and then it's those pieces on top that really make it sing. So it's very much both.
100%. It's interesting, I often get asked, so these neurotransmitters, dopamine, serotonin, noradrenaline, can we measure them? I was like, yes, but it's very impractical to try and get specific measurements on neurotransmitters. What we can do, which is more powerful, is do things to regulate them and self-regulate. And that's what you've just said. Great sleep, exercise, nutrition, mindset training, breath work. These things have a massive impact on those neurotransmitters, and there's more within our control than we think.
Yeah. And it makes a huge difference. And I did just want to add, for all of those people who are like, I don't go on social media all the time, I don't procrastinate by watching TV. If you are cleaning your desk or going through the back of your drawers, that can count as procrastination. I worked with so many people.
I love that.
The amount of people who are like, I'm motivated, we're going to do it, Skye, but I just realized I need to redesign my website, so I'll be back in 3 months. Like, no. That's not, when we got radically clear, that was not what we discussed.
That sounds a bit like me.
Yeah, well, that kind of brings us into the second part, step 5, which is do the work. And that is huge. So often, I know you've had this experience, I've had it too, when people get to the point where they're like, okay, now I feel clear. I know what my BS is. I feel like the motivation is there, but I don't want to do it. I just don't want to do the work. And a lot of times this is like a secret thing that people don't want to share. But once they do, it's so powerful because it is hard to do the work.
It really is. And for me, it's about disciplining the inner domain to dominate the outer domain. And the outer domain's our industry, our work, our hobbies, whatever it might be. But it comes down to a level of discipline. And of course, the book's called Habits of High Performers. But any activity that you're disciplined on for a certain length of time, eventually you won't need discipline because you will have formed the habit. So for me, it's about, where do I need to get disciplined in a specific area of my life or work? And, if you look at the research from University College of London, on average, it takes around 66 days to get a new activity to the point of automaticity, that point where you're just doing it automatically without stressing or worrying. So give yourself time. It's a good couple of months of being disciplined before you're actually doing the work habitually. So I think there's a lot of patience and long game playing involved in it.
100%. I'm also curious for you, what do you give advice to around bringing people in to help you with that discipline? Because you have a team around you, you travel with somebody else, you've got Caroline doing amazing at what she does. So how does having people to help with accountability help with doing the work?
I mean, again, if you look at any research studies around accountability, the results that people get and the consistency of those results is highly elevated when they've got people providing radical accountability. So for me, I've got multiple coaches in my life for different areas of my life because I am human and I'm not the perfect Jiminy Cricket that can keep myself accountable. And, it's like, actually, I need people. Caroline, for example, she is the business. I just happen to step on stage. I just happen to turn up to my live event. If it wasn't for Caroline, none of it would happen. If it wasn't for Caroline, I wouldn't be here this morning on this podcast. Let's get real, So you need people that are better at things that you're not good at. And that's where, again, goats focus on their strengths. So one of
Yeah.
my weaknesses is calendaring. One of my weaknesses is following through on things that are kind of negotiable, like going to the gym. So before Caroline left this morning, she was like, she used to be a personal trainer, by the way. I've just wrote you out a list. So as soon as you're done with Skye, you're doing a workout. Okay. I was like, okay, cool. That's 20 minutes and I can do it and I can get a shower and get to my next thing. And awesome. If she didn't do that, as soon as you and I hang up, I'd be straight into the emails, what's most imminent. So I need that. I think we all need it.
Yeah, 100%, especially when you're trying to do big things. And I think this is why I wanted to ask you this question, because I mean, I've worked with people who have multi-million dollar businesses, and I'll say, well, do you have an assistant? And they'll say, no, because it's just this feeling that, oh, I don't need one. And in reality, it's such a huge part of helping you, you know, do the best at being you, which is the highest ROI thing you can do.
100%. Getting someone to assist you, executive assistant, virtual assistant, whatever you're going to do, is the best investment you can make in your life and in your business. So I was doing it alone. I was probably doing 90-hour weeks on average, maybe sometimes bigger weeks, sometimes smaller. I was knackered. I was exhausted. I was performing okay. And my business was turning over okay revenue. When I brought in an EA, within 3 years, I 5x'd the revenue and maintained profit margins. It was a phenomenal increase. So I would say that if you get the right person and you give them the right parameters and here's how to succeed with me, my goodness, it opens up a whole other level of performance.
Yeah, 100%. And for those of you who are listening who have ADHD symptoms and feel the idea is terrifying, we talk about how to do it with an ADHD friendly way. But ultimately, you are totally right, James. It's a huge, huge ROI. It's the number one thing in terms of doing the work outside of the habit and actually doing it. So let's talk a little bit about then focusing on the priorities. So we talked about this idea of what do we need to do? What is the urgent thing, that GOAT idea that you were talking about? Take me through what it means to really focus on priorities.
Yeah, so probably an example. I had a client I'd been working with for a number of months, a coaching client. And he says, James, I'm not getting the results I want in my business. I was like, cool, tell me more. So he starts sharing the numbers and the lack of income. I said, okay, what's the problem? He says, oh, well, I'm just so busy. I'm just so busy. I was like, okay, give me your phone. He says, what? I said, give me your phone. He says, what do you want? I said, just open it for me, please. He went, no. So I just put it up to his face, unlocked it. I said, okay. Screen time. This is interesting. 8 hours, 51 minutes on Facebook. 6 hours on TikTok. 4 hours, 33 minutes on Snapchat. Okay, cool. Now, on those platforms, you've done about 22 hours this week on social platforms. How much work is being done there? How many of your clients have you got there or communicate with on there? And he said, James, absolutely none. I said, okay, so you don't have a busy problem. You have a priority problem. So we need to get your priorities straight. And high performers are very priority focused. They say no a lot. They're happy to say no a lot to a lot of people, including weddings, including beers with the boys on Friday night. They're very happy to do that. So when I look at it, there's two types of WMI, and we've got to focus on the right WMI. Some of us are focused on what's most imminent. So when we wake up with our phones being our alarms and we're straight into social media right after we turn our alarm off, or straight into our emails or texts or LinkedIn, the list goes on. That's us being focused on the wrong WMI. You're focused on what's most imminent. Other people's needs and to-dos become your list. The other WMI that I would encourage high performers to focus on, or aspiring high performers, is what's most important. And only you can decide that. Nobody else knows what's most important. For me, Skye, I'll share with you, is that family, fitness, finance, learning, and my business. Those are my 5 priorities, and they tend to stay in that order. Now, if my clients are listening to this, they're going, James, what the hell? You have us at number 5? Are you serious? Like, yeah, you're at 5 and you will stay there. But I promise you, you will get 100% of me when I'm with you, because my family is getting what it needs. My fitness, my finances, the learning, I'm able to serve you at a really high level. But if I'm not learning, my finances are a hot mess, I'm not looking after myself, and I've got tension in my family relationships, I'm not going to be
Yeah.
great for coaching you or working with your team. So
Mhm.
I think getting clear on what priorities are is critically important. And then being able to use them. I've got a filter in the book, a decision-making filter for those that have to make big decisions or small decisions, but just any tough decision. It's a very simple filter to go, here's how we make decisions quickly and get out of the head and onto the page.
Yeah, no, definitely. And I honestly think this is the biggest, if I think about the last year, for me personally, this has been the biggest one is the priorities. Because yes, obviously we have a lot of the strategies, but that idea of saying no to things and sometimes saying no to things that used to be a yes, saying no to opportunities that used to feel like a big yes, and realizing that actually in service of the goals and get in service of having more of that time, like you said, that deep time, not being busy, being able to focus on, business development is one of my biggest ones outside of family. It is really scary to say no to things that you used to say yes to.
100%. It's interesting you say the word scary. So, like, if we go back to the word decide, because when you say no or yes, it's a decision, right?
Hmm.
So, decide, 2 syllables. If we look at the second syllable, CIDE, side. What other words come to mind when you that finish in CIDE? What comes to mind for you?
I don't know if I'm allowed to say them on the podcast without changing
Right
the
now.
rating, but a lot of negative words. I think like there's a poison that comes to mind.
Yes.
Yeah, yeah,
There's some bad acts that can
yeah,
happen. They
yeah.
all mean essentially to cut off, to end, to kill. So
Hmm.
we have to make sure that when we're making a decision, we look at the actual meaning of the word to decide. When you go back to its Latin roots, it means to cut off all other options. That's exactly what it
Hmm.
means. So when we are
Yeah.
deciding, it's saying yes to one thing and no to many other things. Most high performers are also people pleasers, and they will want to say, yes, I can do it. Yes, I can do it. Yes, I can be there. Yes, I'll figure it out. Yes, I'll juggle it. But
Hmm.
actually, high performers over the long run, holistic high performers, they know that's not sustainable. And they're very comfortable to say, no, no, I can't do it. That doesn't serve my mission. And they simplify their way to success.
Yeah. I think that's so powerful and so important. And I guess my question for you, selfishly maybe for me, is what advice would you have for somebody who struggles with that idea, because ultimately it is a selfish idea in some ways, because you are working on your own goals and sometimes you're doing it in opposition to other people's goals?
Yeah, well, I think there's two ways to look at the word selfish. It can be something that's kind of egotistical and unfair and that you take from others, or you could say self focused. And at times in
Mm.
our life, we need to be self focused. When you see anyone who achieves anything of substance, it makes an impact on their family, their community, their country, or the world. They're often very self focused for a long time until they master their craft, until they create the product. So Steve Jobs, a very self focused human who, when you look at it now, has impacted billions of lives. Some would say for the positive, some might say the opposite. But his products are phenomenal, right?
Hmm.
So we need to be self focused if we want to achieve great things in our lives. And I say those great things don't need to be changing the world. They could be making the most epic coffee. If you're a barista, you want to make the best coffee, you've got to be self focused to develop that craft and say no to other things and be at home and invest in yourself. So I think it's about
Yeah.
changing that word of selfishness. There's a lot of pressure on us. I don't know if there's parents listening right now, but as a parent, you're often like, God, if I do that thing and go to that course or read that book, that means I'm spending those 5 hours away from my family. God, it's so selfish. But is it? Is investing in your mindset and your heart set, your emotions, is that a selfish act? I think it's a really beautiful thing to do. And we need to give ourselves more time to invest in ourselves.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. And also, what can be self-focused and maybe people, chances are you're going to get some pushback. I think that's always the way. Long term, you can, like you said, you can give back, you can make the best coffee and everyone can be like, that was the best. I'm so glad you did that.
Hell yeah.
Like ultimately most of the things that you're self-focused about are going to impact other people positively, more so than just the short-term yeses.
Absolutely. And I guess the thing I want the listener to think about right now is that you cannot give what you do not have. And if you want to have something to give, you've got to pour into yourself. And that's why for me, you can see behind me, there's some of my books that I've read through across the years. I've probably got 1,000 books in the house. I love books. It slows me down. It gets me to think. It challenges me. Caroline gives me books all the time on things I would never think of lifting. And it's really changed my thinking on diversity and how people think and gender roles and all this stuff I'd never even considered. So I would say for the listener, if you're not reading, please read. If you hate reading, go audiobook. But definitely try and fill your mind with really rich ideas. Invest in yourself that way. You will have more to give.
Yeah, 100%. And I agree. I love an audiobook, although I also love a physical book. And I'm starting to build out that library as well. It's nice
Good.
to have that back. So let's talk about the last one. Take no shortcuts. This is really interesting to me that this was the last thing that tied all the habits together. Do you want to just take us through what does it mean to take no shortcuts?
Yeah, well, I think to start with, for the person listening, if you take a shortcut, you will have to pay the price. Bottom line is when you're doing something great or you're trying to be above the norms, be a high performer, whatever you want to call it, there's no shortcuts. And the people who take shortcuts always pay that price. And yeah, it's probably not a popular habit to finish the book with. But when I look at the people who are the greatest at what they do, and whether it's an athlete I've coached or an entrepreneur, they're so thorough. They'd rather take 50 hours and slowly do it right than outsource it for 1 hour and get it done wrong. They'd rather really take no shortcuts. This is the same with people. If you've got a business and you're hiring people, take no shortcuts. This is the same with if you're writing a book, like I imagine there'll be a lot of listeners that might write a book in their lives. Take no shortcuts. Take your time. So for me, it's systemized. So you know what your end goal is. We did it at the start of the book. We got radically clear. Okay, we need a system for that. So take no shortcuts is all around success planning. How do we plan for success? And we reverse engineer that goal.
Yeah. Can you take us through an example of where you didn't take a shortcut, where you chose not to take a shortcut, specifically, when you started building the business that you have today?
Yeah. Yeah. So if I could start with the podcast. So it's 2019. I'm living in a really small apartment in the city in Christchurch. And in my bedroom, got my laptop where I work from. And I thought, you know what? I'm 12,000 miles from the UK. I'm like 6,000 miles from North America. I'm far from the action. And I want to keep my finger on the pulse. I want to serve my clients, both here and abroad, at the highest levels. To do that, I've got to learn from the very best. So I thought, you know what? I'm going to interview someone every single week. And I'm going to commit to it for a year. And so I get like 3 months into interviewing NFL superstars, people running large companies, small companies. And I get 3 months in and go, whoa, I got 20 listeners a week. This is ridiculous. This costs me so much time. Nobody's listening. Well, I said, no. You committed 1 year. You've got 9 months to go. Keep at it. So I keep at it. 6 months later, I've got like 53 listeners on average a week. I'm like, okay, slightly increasing. But I get to the year mark. I'm like, oh, there's like 900 listeners. Like, that's a big difference from the start. This is awesome. And so I decided at that point, I'd double down. I'd do 2 episodes a week, one being a solo cast of me sharing ideas, the other being a guest. And so I kept compounding. We're maybe 5 years in. And when I started getting #1 chartings on Apple, and we won the New Zealand Podcast Awards, people were like, oh my God, you're an overnight sensation. And how'd you do it? Like, no. I've got no secret sauce. There's nothing magical about what I do. It took a long time. It was simple things done repetitively, consistently over time that produced some results. And if I was to pull back from that now, my chartings would drop, my listenership would drop. So for me, it's like, I just have to keep showing up. And it's not easy, and sometimes it's taxing, and sometimes it's full on, but that's what I committed to. So I think when you make a commitment as a high performer, you've got to follow through on it.
Yeah. I think that's so important. And it's one of the reasons why, you got to make sure you're focusing on those priorities. That's why it's a good one to kind of have at the end, because you want to be clear, because I think sometimes, especially those of us who struggle with ADHD symptoms, we can like run away with our, like, we're going to commit to this and this and this and this, and it's going to be great. And then realizing like, actually we can only commit to the most important things, the ones that are the highest priority for us.
You're spot on. And in fact, the book Habits of High Performers, like for me, there's no way I could have wrote that 3 years ago. There's no way I could have published it a year ago, because there was other priorities. And I decided 2025 is the year of the book. Like, I'm just going to focus on the book, I'm going to give it everything, and I'm going to say no to a bunch of other things. And so it was a commitment and a sacrifice and a risk. But actually, I'm really glad that I've done it. So for whoever's thinking about what they need to do next, get clear on the one thing and double down on it.
Yeah. Yeah, 100%. Triple down on it. 10x it.
Yeah, I like it.
Yeah, 100%. And it was so great. And yeah, the book has been amazing and obviously done really, really well, and now going to go around the world. So for those of you who are wondering how to get a copy, I know that's what is the next steps for the book, James? Do you want to take us through that?
Yeah, so anybody in Australia, New Zealand, they can go to thehabitbook.com and get a copy from Amazon, from their local bookstore. I really encourage you to go and support local bookstores if you can. Globally, that will be released in the US and the UK, date to be confirmed. But anyone down here can get it on their Kindle or paperback. The other thing, for those that would like access to the success planning method that my clients use, I'd love to give it to your listeners for free, if that's okay.
Yeah, 100%.
Awesome. So I'll give you the details. It's jjlaughlin.com/planner. But hopefully, if you guys can pop it in the notes, that would be amazing.
Oh, yeah, 100%. We've got to get that down. So then we have just got a couple of questions to round us out that we ask everybody. So, James, what is one professional achievement that you are the most proud of?
For me, it was that career transition of going from James, the guy who played drums, sold drums, taught drums, to someone who was working with high performers, politicians. Like, I never in a month of Sundays would have imagined that. I had so much self-doubt around that. So that's probably, I know there's lots of titles and all that stuff you could focus on, but actually just bridging that gap of self-doubt. Like, I was trapped in this job I didn't really love anymore. And the ability to kind of move across with help. I had a lot of help doing that. This wasn't a James discovered it. And no. I had a lot of coaches like you, Skye. I had people like you helping me. And so, yeah, that's definitely something I'm really proud of.
Awesome. And on the other side, what is one failure or hard lesson that sort of was embarrassing, but ultimately, was a learning experience for you?
Could I share a personal one?
Yeah, go for it.
Yeah, so divorce. Like, going through divorce, like, that was horrifically difficult for everyone involved, and a lot of personal lessons, a lot of personal pain. So that's certainly something that has shaped how I look at the world. It really forced me to look at, what do I value? And if I get into another relationship, what might that look like? So that's certainly, when I look at high performance, it's about consistently exceeding the norms in your field whilst maintaining healthy relationships and well-being. I didn't do that very well when I was just focused on winning. So I believe that holistic high performance is what we aim for. So that's definitely something I look back on and like, that was a failure. I've learned a lot from that, and I endeavor never to do that again.
Yeah. And I think it's valuable now that you can share from that place of being able to say, like, hey, I'm not just saying this to say it.
100% lived experience.
100%. And if you had your own motto, and you've written a book, so you probably have a ton, like, what would it be?
Yeah, a couple of things come to mind for me. So get out there and lead your life on purpose. Like, that to me is the crux of everything I believe. And just get out there and do it. Take a swing, but do it with purpose. Do work that matters. So yeah, get out there and lead your life on purpose.
I love that. And what a great way to end it. So, James, tell us, where can we find you? You've already told us, but tell us again, those of you who've gone to the end, because you want to hear about how to find James.
Absolutely. I'd love to connect with people, whether it's on LinkedIn, they can find me, just James Laughlin. If you're in North America, you'd probably pronounce it Laughlin. So find me on LinkedIn, Instagram, Facebook, of course, the podcast, and then thehabitbook.com.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for coming on. And yes, if you can get the book, get the book. It's a great book. You'll see it on my shelf. And yeah, thanks so much for coming on, James.
Thanks, Skye. You're awesome.
Thank you for listening, and a big thank you to Adam for making us sound great, Anastasia for making us look great, and Jess for putting it all together. We couldn't do it without you. If you want to find out more about us, or you want to deep dive into ADHD strategies, particularly for business owners, you can find us on Instagram at Unconventional Organization. That is where the community is. That is where we are chatting. You can see all the fun and exciting things that we're bringing to the table there. So please go find us. DM me any questions, any thoughts you have. I always like talking with you guys. See you soon.